Different year, same type of Ohio State-Penn State game and result.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
This season, I've been talking about the resiliency of the Penn State Nittany Lions, how they maybe have that dog in them to be able to come back in some of these games this season. Ohio State had that today in Happy Valley. Getting behind 10-0, that was an extremely difficult spot early in the game for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That is certainly not the way Ohio State wanted to start, including a pick six. This Beaver Stadium crowd really started to get into this game. But after that 10-0 stretch, Ohio State came back and they played really good football, and that starts with number 18 in scarlet and gray. Will Howard, much like the rest of this team for Ohio State, played a really gutsy and gritty type of game to be able to come out of Happy Valley with a win 20-13 over the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, Will Howard and this run game can't have that gritty and grind it out type of performance unless you talk about the number one takeaway that I and anybody else should talk about when they chat about this game, and it's that Ohio State offensive line. The patchwork did great work up front for the old Buckeyes. The biggest question turned out to be the biggest factor in the win for Ohio State. Donovan Jackson, an All-American guard, moving out to left tackle. Did he get beat by Abdul Carter for a couple of sacks in this game? Yes, he did. But overall, I thought he played a really solid game over there at tackle. He's proven certainly throughout his career that he can play in the interior. Today, I think he proved that he can play in the exterior of this offensive line certainly as well. You got a guy like Carson Hinsman that has started games for Ohio State in the past, been on the second team this year. He jumps up. I thought he and this whole group really played a really good game for the Ohio State Buckeyes in this game. They just leaned on Penn State in this later on in the second half, third quarter, and especially that fourth quarter. I'd maybe have to go back and watch a lot of these games a lot more in depth, but I'm pretty sure that this was the best run blocking performance for the Ohio State Buckeyes this season when you consider the type of front and defensive line they were playing. I feel pretty confident in saying that. Ohio State rushed for 176 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, and it was this offensive line that, like a fine wine, got better over time. When they got into the fourth quarter, they got more of a push, and the run game came up with key first downs to eventually ice this football game away. So big thumbs up to Ohio State on their up front. And as this season goes along, as we get into November, as we get into this playoff time, I think Ohio State and their offensive line can build off of a performance like this to have that run game be better and better as we approach some of these tighter games as we get closer towards the end of the season. All right, folks, let's talk about Penn State's offense and specifically their red zone struggles. Before I maybe talk about the Nittany Lions a little bit more, because there is a lot, I think, to say here about Penn State, but you got to give credit where credit is due for Jim Knowles and this Ohio State defense. First of all, they were very comfortable in man coverage, specifically early in this game. They went to zone a little bit later on, but they felt that, hey, we can leave our guys on an island because Penn State just doesn't have the horses on the outside to be able to make those explosive plays and big plays down the field. They felt very comfortable dedicating more resources to stop the run game of Katron Allen, to stop the run game of Nick Singleton. Like, the best run game for Penn State in this game was the scrambling ability of Drew Aller to help move the sticks throughout the game. And then they felt that Caleb Downs could match up pretty well against Tyler Warren. I said that in my preview, and in the first half and the early part of the second half, that rang true. Now, Tyler Warren did get a couple of big plays. Now, one was in the run game, but one was also in the throw game as well. So he did get some big plays down the stretch, but I thought Caleb Downs did a really good job, and the Ohio State defense did a really good job limiting the amount of times that Tyler Warren touched the football there in the first half of this football game as well. But this is still a Penn State team and a Penn State offense that, when you can't run the football very effectively, and this Ohio State defense is really good up front And when you can't create those explosive plays down the field, you're not going to have a lot of success against a great team like the Ohio State Buckeyes. Let's talk about the red zone, folks, and maybe a deep breath here now for the Penn State Nittany Lion fans, because I think that Penn State coming up on the short end of the stick might have been due to their struggles when they got into the red area, when they got into prime scoring position, because this is an Ohio State defense that kept opposing offenses outside of the 20-yard line better than any team in college football this season. So when you get to that area, you have to convert. But Ohio State, when the field shrinks, they come up big. Now, late into the first half, you just got to give credit where credit is due, man. Like I said before, Davis and Igbinosun just making plays, taking the football away. Ohio State, over the course of this football game, made key plays in big situations where Penn State was not able to do so. Late into that first half, Penn State, you got to come away with points at that situation. You go to 5 minutes left in the game, fourth quarter, after a big Tyler Warren run, and the play calling down by the goal line was absolutely perplexing. 3 straight runs up the middle. What do we know about Penn State? What have we heard about Penn State? Well, Andy Kotelnicki, he's going to put guys into different spots. He's going to send guys in motions. He's very creative. That was not a very creative play calling sequence where you run, and then you try to throw, you try to get Tyler Warren going on in the flat, but Ohio State had it covered really well. I was like yelling at the TV. I think on the second down or third down, I'm like, pull the ball. Right? I thought maybe you could bring in Bo Perbula onto the field at that point. Maybe you could bring in Tyler Warren. The play at how you got to this end of the field, how you got this deep into Ohio State territory, was Tyler Warren lining up at quarterback and making a play in the run game. They were very vanilla down there. Now, they sent the offensive linemen in motion from 2 different sides of the field, passing on second down. Just any type of variety down there, I think, could have equaled in points there for the Penn State Nittany Lions, but they were very vanilla. They were very predictable against an Ohio State front that was stifling them in the interior run game all afternoon long. So that whole sequence did not make any sense. And then when you add on the fact that Ohio State is really good at red zone defense, look at that goal line stand last week against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, because just nothing out of that sequence really made sense for Penn State at that moment in time. Getting into the red zone those 2 times and coming away with 0 points, yeah, that's the difference in the football game. And that's what we talk about when we talk about Ohio State making plays and Penn State not making plays. Folks, the narratives are going to be turned up to 11 on James Franklin right now, because Franklin fumbles again. Now, what do we know about Penn State? What this game tells us, what maybe last year's Penn State-Ohio State game told us, and maybe what Penn State over the course of the James Franklin tenure has told us. This defense is really good to great and keeps the Nittany Lions in a game like this. But Penn State, the blue and white, are not able to break through in a game like this because, man, they lack speed, they lack playmaking ability on the perimeter. Plain and simple. I want to give credit. I watched Andy Staples after this game, and he said, yeah, I mean, of course, there were some decisions that were made in this game that prevented Penn State from winning, but this game may have been lost in the offseason. When they lost Keandre Lambert-Smith, they brought in Julian Fleming, but that certainly wasn't much of an upgrade on it within a group that needed an upgrade in that group. Penn State's biggest playmaking threat down the field this season has been Tyler Warren. These wide receivers haven't been all that great, and when you match up against a secondary like Ohio State, that's going to be a matchup mismatch. I think it's more of the same for Penn State. I know they've made slight improvements in different areas of their offense and different areas of their football team, but I think you're going to have a ceiling. I think you're going to have a cap when you play really good teams. You're going to have that ceiling. You're going to have that cap if you don't have those playmakers on the perimeter. I'm not saying you need to be like Oregon. All right? I'm just saying when it's key points into key games, your wide receivers need to be trusted that they can make a play. Wide receivers in this game against Ohio State for Penn State, they caught 3 passes for 49 yards. You got to do better than that. You need to have more of a downfield threat. Otherwise, good defenses are going to be able to take this game plan from Ohio State and says, dedicate more resources to the box. If we have good corners, we're going to be fine when we face off against the Penn State Nittany Lions. I just overall feel that this Penn State team has that ceiling of being a really good football team, maybe not a great football team or an elite football team. I think the Nittany Lions this season are probably going to finish 11-1. Could they stumble down the stretch? Yeah, they could, but I got a good feeling they're going to go 11-1. I got a good feeling that this is still going to be a college football playoff team in Happy Valley. But I think that they are going to be capped at the college football playoff quarterfinals. I do not see this team, depending on seeding, depending on matchups, that can make it to the semifinals, right? This is a team that still has those types of issues to be able to break that glass ceiling to be able to get to the next level. We know Ohio State has the personnel and the pieces in place at those positions and in those groups to not only break through to the semifinals, but to possibly win a national championship. Big win for the Ohio State Buckeyes, which now pushes them back up into the Big Ten championship picture, most definitely. I want to hear your thoughts on this matchup. Do you think James Franklin is in a tough spot right now? How much of this loss is on James Franklin for Penn State? And how impressed were you by the Ohio State Buckeyes in this game? Leave all your thoughts on that in the comment below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.